This is a story about a 3-year-old girl who was sent to Auschwitz and what it cost her to survive it. Lidia was born in December 1940 in a small village called Przybitki, near Polotsk in what is now Belarus. Her birth name was Ludmila Bokarova. Her parents were Catholic Belarusians who had aligned themselves with the partisan resistance fighting the Nazi occupation, the underground network of men and women operating out of the forests, sabotaging German infrastructure, sheltering Jews, refusing the occupation on its own terms. It was dangerous work. The Nazis treated partisan sympathizers with the same methodical brutality they reserved for everyone they considered an enemy of the Reich. Being caught was not a question of if, it was a question of when. When Lidia was 3 years old, her family was caught. German forces arrested her, her mother Anna, her maternal grandparents, and a foster brother in late 1943. The accusation was supporting the partisans. As a punishment, the entire village was imprisoned. From Vitebsk, after a summary trial in December 1943, they were transported to Auschwitz-Birkenau. Lidia was 3 years old and a few weeks when she arrived at the camp. She remembered the woods of Belarus, the trees, the cold, the smell of the forest. She remembered those. She remembered nothing of the journey. What she remembered next was Auschwitz. The selection process at Auschwitz-Birkenau sorted new arrivals in minutes. To the right, labor. To the left, the gas chambers. Children almost always went left. A 3-year-old had no labor value. A 3-year-old was scheduled for immediate death. What saved Lidia from the gas chamber was the attention of a man in a pressed uniform who walked the selection line. His name was Josef Mengele. The prisoners called him the Angel of Death. Mengele was Auschwitz's chief physician, a man whose medical credentials had been repurposed entirely in service of racial ideology and a personal obsession with human experimentation. He was particularly interested in children, in twins, in those with physical abnormalities, in anyone whose body offered him a variable to test. He selected Lidia from the line not to spare her, but to use her. She was taken to the children's block. The children's block was a barrack inside Birkenau where Mengele kept his experimental subjects. It was not a place of safety. It was a place of a different kind of death, slower, more deliberate, administered in a laboratory rather than a gas chamber. The children were injected with infectious diseases to observe the progression. They were given poisons to measure the body's response. Blood was drawn in quantities that left some children translucent with anemia. Eyes were injected with dye in attempts to change their color. The experiments had no therapeutic purpose. They were not searching for cures. They were cataloging suffering. Lidia survived them. She did not know why, then or later. She was small and she was sick, and she kept surviving. She learned the rules of the block, the way children learn the rules of any environment they cannot leave, through observation, through imitation, through the animal understanding of what draws attention and what avoids it. When she heard Mengele's boots on the floor of the barrack, she hid under the lowest bunk and pressed herself against the back wall and made herself as invisible as a 4-year-old can make herself. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. When it didn't, she was taken to the laboratory, and when she came back, she sometimes came back in a coma and did not know what had been done to her. She said later, "When I go to Mengele, I am put to sleep. So when I leave, I don't remember exactly what happened. I wake up and it is my body that speaks and tells me stories." Her mother Anna was in the women's section of the camp. The distance between them was a barbed wire fence and the entire infrastructure of a system designed to prevent human connection. Anna came to the children's block at night, illegally, risking selection and punishment to reach her daughter. She forced Lidia to repeat a set of words every visit, a memorized identity to hold onto in the event that everything else was stripped away. "My name is Liuda. I am 3 years old. I am the daughter of Belarusian partisans. I was taken to Birkenau." The tattooed number on Lidia's arm was 70072. Her mother's was 70071. Lidia spent 13 months in the children's block of Auschwitz-Birkenau, 13 months as a subject in Josef Mengele's laboratory. By the time she had been there long enough to understand what the smell from the crematoria meant, she was 4 years old. In January 1945, the Soviet army was advancing on Auschwitz from the east. The SS began the process of destroying evidence, burning documents, demolishing crematoria, preparing to abandon what they had built. On January 17, 1945, they began evacuating the camp, forcing approximately 60,000 prisoners onto the roads in the middle of the Polish winter. These were the death marches, columns of starving, frostbitten prisoners driven westward on foot in temperatures well below zero, shot if they fell, shot if they slowed, shot if they tried to stop. The purpose was not evacuation. The purpose was to prevent the prisoners from being liberated alive. Anna was among those marched out. Lydia was not. Children were left behind, too weak to march, not worth the effort of killing individually when the gas chambers were already being shut down. They were simply left. The assumption of the SS, as the columns moved out and the camp emptied, was that the abandoned prisoners would die of cold and starvation before the Soviets arrived. Most of them did. Lydia did not. She was 4 years old, tattooed, malnourished, frostbitten, dressed in rags in a Polish January. She had no mother. She had no family. She had the number on her arm and the words her mother had made her memorize and nothing else. On January 27, 1945, Soviet soldiers entered Auschwitz-Birkenau. They found 7,000 prisoners still alive. They found hundreds of corpses. They found Lydia among the surviving children, a small skeleton covered in lice, her legs frostbitten, her face the face of someone who had learned not to show what she felt, because showing it had never led anywhere safe. A Soviet soldier gave her a cup of coffee with milk and a slice of bread with margarine. She remembered this for the rest of her life. The taste of it, the warmth of it, the incomprehensible ordinariness of being given food by someone who expected nothing in return. She was told that her mother had not survived. The death march had taken her. She was gone. A Polish woman from the nearby town of Auschwitz was among those who came to the camp after liberation. Her name was Bronisława Rydzikowska. She had no children of her own. She looked at the orphaned children left behind by the death marches and the gas chambers and the abandonment of Auschwitz-Birkenau, and she chose Lydia. She took her home. She washed her. She put her in a bed with sheets. Lydia, who had never slept in a bed with sheets, was terrified of it. She did not know what it was for. She had slept on wooden boards in a barrack for 13 months. The softness of a mattress made no sense to her. The bath terrified her. Hot water had meant the laboratory. She had to learn from the beginning what ordinary life felt like. Bronisława was patient. She was also, by Lydia's later account, bossy and certain, and exactly what a traumatized child with no affect and no tears needed. Lydia had stopped being able to cry. The mechanism had shut down somewhere in the children's block, sometime in the months of experiments and cold and the smell of the crematoria. She could not cry. She would not cry for years. Bronisława called her Lidia Rydzikowska and gave her her name and raised her as her daughter, and Lydia came to love her, fully, genuinely, without qualification, which made what came later complicated in a way that took years to resolve. Lydia grew up in Auschwitz, in the shadow of what had happened there, in a town that lived next to the ruins of Auschwitz-Birkenau and rarely spoke about it. She went to school. She made friends. She was a Polish girl with a number tattooed on her arm and a story she had been told but did not fully remember, and a mother she had been told was dead. She became a teenager. Her friends encouraged her to look, to write to organizations, to search the records, to find out what had actually happened to Anna. Bronisława was afraid. Lydia told her she was not searching for a replacement. She was searching for the truth. In the late 1950s, a letter arrived from the German Red Cross. The letter said, "Your mother is not dead. She is alive. She lives in the Soviet Union, in the region of Donetsk. Anna had survived the death march. She had survived the end of the war. She had spent the years since searching for her daughter through Soviet channels, writing to organizations, asking questions that the bureaucracy of the USSR did not make it easy to ask. She had been looking for Lyudmila Bosharova for 17 years and had never stopped. Lydia read the letter and felt, she wrote later, as if she had been broken open. She felt betrayed. Why had her mother not found her sooner? Why had it taken 17 years? Then the fuller picture assembled itself. The Iron Curtain, the Soviet bureaucracy, the impossibility of tracing a child who had been given a new name in a different country. The distance between searching and finding, when the systems designed to connect people were not built for that purpose. Her mother had been looking. The world had been in the way. They met in Moscow in 1962. Lidia was 21 years old. Anna was the woman who had come to the children's block at night with her life at risk to make a small girl repeat her name and her origin so she would not lose herself entirely. They had not seen each other since January 1945, when Anna was forced onto a road in the snow and Lidia was left in a barrack to die. The best moment of the reunion, Lidia wrote, was watching her two mothers, Anna and Bronisława, embrace each other. Two women who had never met, one of whom had given her life and one of whom had saved it, both of them her mother. She stood between them, and for the first time in years, she cried. After that, she visited both of them every year. She returned to Poland. She lived her life in Krakow, became a great-grandmother, became a speaker and a witness, traveled to schools and conferences and memorials to stand in front of young people and show them the number on her arm and tell them what had been done to her before she was old enough to understand it. In May 2021, Pope Francis kissed that number. He bowed his head to an 80-year-old woman and pressed his lips to the tattoo on her arm, 70072, and the photograph went around the world. She stood there and let him, and her expression was of someone who had made peace with a past that did not deserve peace, because the alternative was to let it define everything. She said, "Hate only brings more hate. Love has the power to redeem." She was 3 years old when they tattooed the number on her arm. She carried it for 80 years. If you enjoy bizarre true stories like this, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you on the next one.